Today I'm going to show you how to work with a pen and wash technique to paint this adorable Indigo Bunting, and what an appropriate name that is as well. I'll show you the process from start to finish. So let's get them pens working and also those brushes wet. Let's get started. The first thing you need to do is get an outline drawing onto the paper. All I'm using today is a little bit of graphite back paper, which is this stuff underneath here. Look. Shine the slide down and transfer the outline through to the watercolour paper. As simple as that. Now I've already done this, so this is basically what I've got now. The pen I'm using today is a Sakura Pigma Micron 01. So that's that one there. There you go, there's your 01. And that's how fine that nib is. This is a waterproof ink, and because of that, once it's dry, it just allows me to put the watercolour over the top without disturbing that pen work. If you use a normal gel pen or a biro, you find that pen will start to move when you add the water over the top. So always use waterproof inks. Something like these here will do. All I want to do first of all is put a few little reference marks in. So where I've got my pencil marks now, just very lightly go over those lines. Just roughly. Very roughly. And these are just depicting the main areas within the face that we can see. So I've got a bit of a crease around there, just below the neck. And that goes all the way down to here. Look at the direction the feathers go as well. So when you put these marks in, ensure that you put them in the right direction. And use the lightest of touches as well, okay? If you press too hard, what you'll find is that you can end up with a darker line, a thicker line. So keep the pressure very light. In other words, just the weight of the pen. That's all I'm doing here, look. And my pen is on a slight tilt, just like that. The weight of the pen is all you need. And that's how fine you can get with this pen. You can get lighter lines, let me show you, by using the side of the nib. So instead of the pen being that sort of angle, I'm lowering it down even further and using the side of the nib. There you go, just about got it there. To graze the surface of the paper. Again, hardly any pressure at all. That's how light you can get these pens to go, even though it's obviously the same nib thickness all the time. Outline those little reference marks first of all, so you know where they all go. You then know the direction of the feathers. And the direction of the feathers are important because that will help create shape for this lovely bird. And one thing we don't want is a flat looking bird at the end of it, do we? We don't want to go too highly detailed with this. Just a few reference marks here and there. And then we'll add some more in between these shortly as we go along with this pen work. When you work around the edge of the feathers, do note that on the black and white version of the photograph, you can see that they're very pale, aren't they? Very light. That's because we know there's a background colour there. Now you can decide if you want to add a background later on. For me, I don't think I need to, not this time around. So when you're working on the edge, remember that sort of angle like that. So you're just grazing the side of the nib of that pen and just catch the texture of the paper as you work your way down the feathers. Again, look in the direction these feathers grow, okay? Be very careful and very gentle with it. There's no rush. Take your time. Never rush a painting. I'll just quickly do a few more and I'll skip forward for you. One thing you do have to remember is that when you use the pen on the paper, the pen is permanent. So because it's permanent, once it's on, it's on. So you can't take it off again. So bear that in mind when you're working with these pens. But that's why you have to plan it beforehand. That's why you've got to really think things through before you decide to add that pen to the paper. And also decide those angles, and also, as I mentioned, the depth of tone for that colour. In other words, do you need to angle that pen down that little bit more? So therefore you get a lighter line. That's what you need to work out as you work your way through it. Look for those marks, then you decide whether those marks need to be lighter or darker. This is another reason for using a black and white photograph. Because at least then, you can decide where things have got to go. It's easier to work out the tonal variations within a black and white photograph than it is when you're working with a coloured version, of which we'll of course go to when we start to add the paint over the top. Now, if you are enjoying what you're seeing here, do me one huge favour, and that's by clicking on that share button down below and also that subscribe button as well. Every time you do something like that, it encourages YouTube to show my channel to other people like yourself, okay? So that's a little thank you from me to you. I'm going to start to add some of these lines in between now. I'm not drawing around the eye just yet because that's the trickiest part to do, isn't it? So I'll do that shortly. So from here on, add the lightest of marks in between the marks you've already made, in the same directions, of course. Don't worry too much about the tonal variations just yet. In other words, those light mid-tones and dark tones, we'll fill those in very shortly. Notice how some of the chest feathers go in patches. They do, don't they? It's not just one flat blanket of feathers really, is it? So you create a patch, and then you work from one patch to another. You can see slight depressions here and there within the chest feathers. Take note of those, hence using that black and white version of the photograph. Get those in situ, just don't go too dark too soon. Okay, the eye. Oh, carefully does it around the eye now. Don't make it too big. That's a mistake I sometimes make. In fact, you can actually work out how big it is before you start to draw it. When you look at the reference photograph, from the inside edge of the beak here, so we got that there, the joints around there, that goes about there. Yeah, from around there probably, something like that. You've got probably a line about there, isn't it? So if you go horizontally across, so nice and level, the top of the eye is effectively around there, but that's the outer eye ring of the eye. So this one here. So it's working out precisely where things lie. Okay, so bring that down around there. The main eyeball there is this one, which I've already got drawn in very lightly. And look at the shape of this. It's not completely round, is it? No. You can see it's more of a sort of squish circle, really. So hardly any pressure at all on this paper. Just so I can mark it in. Then I can be a bit more daring with it then. And go slightly heavier handed. I've got the highlights in the eye. So what I'm going to do is just draw around that initially. And then I can just see a slightly lighter patch around there. Just around one side of the eye. So what I'm going to do is graze using the side of the pen around the top of that highlight. And then it's darker underneath. And I think if you look at the coloured version of the photograph, you can see a horizontal line from roughly about there. It is horizontal actually, isn't it? It's about there. And then you can fill it in just below, very carefully. And slightly wider on the left hand side. Then we can darken just on the inside of the eye, just there. So that now gives us a bit of a highlight in there, doesn't it? And also the beginning of life. Yay. Okay, now the beak. Now we can see there's blue, isn't it? Like a very light blue on the top if you look at the coloured version of the photograph. So what I need to do, look at the black and white version one again, and you can just see a very light hue on there, can't you? Like a mid-tone. So what I'm going to do, use the side of the pen again, just practice it first of all. So just grazing the paper, remember? So you're doing like that. Get that angle about right. They can start to add in just a hint of a shade on there. Very lightly. So what I'm going to do is just a hint of some marks in there. Let's go darker. So we've got the area between the eye and the beak. This is nearly horizontal there, isn't it? Where it goes from the dark area to the light area. Or lighter. It's not that light in there. So darken this down. And flick up as you do so. When you get to the nostril, which is just there, that's where this area stops. I can afford to go slightly higher. And think about that direction you can see there as well. So follow that sort of curve with your flicking out technique. As you flick out, it creates a tapered line. So I tend to do that quite a lot within, well, not just the pens, but also the watercolours. Then around the edge of the beak, this side here is not too bad, is it? All we need in there is just that little bit of colour. And then just around here is a bit darker. Don't completely fill it in though. Use small little tap marks like that. Just have some detail in there. Now I did mention that this is slightly darker there, isn't it, as you can see on that photograph. The problem you've got to be careful of here is if you go too dark, then you find that when you add the colours over the top, it doesn't stand out. So be quite wary of that when you're working with the pen. So I always think, well, maybe less is best, to a certain degree. So trying to get that sort of happy balance between the two. So what I'm going to do, flick up, angling the pen down again, in the direction the feathers grow as usual, very lightly, just catching the surface of the paper again. Add those little flick marks also. It's going to gradually get lighter as it goes higher. And also towards the front of the head there, just above the beak. So flick up a few little lines here and there, very lightly, don't overdo it. Again, look in the direction these lines go. Very, very important. Oh, and don't forget to think about the length of those lines as well. Some are very short, and they're also slightly curved. So worth noting as you're working around the bird. Now I'm trying to add some darker lines in here and there. Just by raising that pen up, instead of being like that, it's now like that sort of angle, about 45 degrees-ish. And then I can start to add in, without too much pressure though, some darker lines here and there. And I'm thinking about the different folds we can see within the feathers as you work your way down the chest here. So don't go mad on the details as I mentioned. And also, as I did say earlier on, you don't want to go too dark, because then the colours won't stand out enough when you add the colours over the top. Look at the different sections you can see. For example, here, we'll see some feathers going that way, more or less towards, say, 7 o'clock direction. And then you've got some just above it going that way, which is more or less towards, well, 5 o'clock direction-ish, between 5 and 6. Well, whatever time you want to call it. Then it gets darker underneath as well. So I'm going to work around the sections here, just doing the same thing. Trying to not overdo it. Playing with that pen. And darken down the bottom just slightly. So it sort of picks out just a rough shape of the edge of that feather there. Then work your way around, okay? Darken down the bottom here as well, below these two, well, clumps of feathers. His bottom feathers, I think they are. And it's darker down here as well. Now if you do fancy learning how to paint very detailed wildlife in watercolours, have a look at the link down below for my Patreon channel. Currently I've got over 180 video lessons there for you to have a go at. Go on, give it a go and see how you get on with detailed watercolour work. Yeah, go on, you can do it. As for the legs and feet, I'm going to very lightly shade just the leg, very lightly, using the side of the pen again. I do need to be a bit darker around there as well. So flick up a few lines away from that leg, away, and around there. And then down the bottom. So very light shades, that's all I'm doing, look. Barely grazing the paper. We have got some extra marks in there, so we can drop those in. And look at each individual leg and foot. Again, you don't have to be too precise, but try and get some of those curves in the right place if you can. The same on the other one. Okay, do exactly the same thing. Very lightly, make sure you got some of those little marks in the rightish place. Rightish is probably the key word. As for the branch, all you need to do, just add a few little tweaks and details here and there using a squiggly hand. A squiggly wobbly hand, actually. I'm using the side of the pen, as you can see here, look. I've only used the same nib all the way through, as you can see. I've not changed it. No. So a few little marks here and there to create texture within that branch. It's going to be darker towards the bottom. So you can darken this line down a little bit more. Like that, and flick it out so it tapers. The top line not so much, so very gently just graze over the top of that. Using the side, nearly, of the pen. Like so. So a few marks within the branch, some vertical, some curved as well, but barely touching the paper. And some of the areas which you can see are slightly darker, you've even got a bit of a knot around here as well. If you want to draw it in, you can do. You don't have to. It's your branch at the end of the day. Once you've got this drawn out, Then it's time to start adding the colours over the top. Oh, hang on. I missed the wing. I need to draw that one in as well. I mustn't forget that wing. Increase the mark slightly more for the lower section of the branch, just on the underside here. Look. That's because I want to create more of a curved feel to it. So I darken it slightly, only slightly though, not too much. You can then start to give it a feel of shape. Because one thing you don't want is a flat looking branch. So increase the marks down below, then gradually decrease those marks, so ease off them the higher up you go. Probably no more than halfway, so when you kind of end it like that. So you're sort of tapering out those marks, aren't you? So sort of lessening them the higher you go within that branch. And already just that one side there, look, we've got a bit of a curved feel to it, haven't we? Just by increasing those marks down below. Okay, draw in the wing, and then it'll be ready to receive some colours over the top. Let's make up 4 different mixes. I'm going to go for a little bit of Gambo Hue. That can go in there. This is for around the inside edge of that beak. You can just see just a hint of yellow in there, can't you? And then I'm going to go for a triple mixture of mauve, Payne's Grey and Burnt Umber. So that's mauve there, Payne's Grey and Burnt Umber. So get those in. All these mixes need to be more of a milky consistency. So I probably need to add a bit more pigment into that yellow. Then we need 2 different blues as well, which will be Indigo and Phthalo Blue. After all, it is an Indigo Bunting, isn't it? So let's use some Indigo. And Phthalo Blue, or Windsor Blue, whichever one you've got there. And then Indigo, Phthalo Blue and Mauve. Right, grab yourself a size 2 or size 4 brush. I think I'll go for the lightest colour first of all. Just apply that just on the inside part of the beak. Or the gape of the beak, just around there. A little bit, that's all you need. Just a hint of yellow in there. Got far too much paint there as per usual. I always do that, you know. I'd rather have too much than not enough. Whilst that's drying, let's work on the feet. Or the legs and the feet. We'll go for our purple version now. The both Payne's Grey and the Burnt Umber. And add that over the top of the legs, but leaving gaps in between. And these gaps are those sort of highlighted gaps we can see on the photograph. Or something similar to it anyway. Keep it simple, then darker towards those claws. Now do the same on the other foot as well. If you find it's not dark enough, let it dry or give it a blast with a hairdryer. Then just go over the top again using that same colour. Every layer that you add will get darker and also richer in tone. Probably a little bit too much on there, so I'm going to just take some of that off. And just very lightly apply it to the paper. Once this is dry, if you want to, you can go over the top of that again with some pen. Just to darken down a fraction more if you need it. The same on the other side, of course. Then very lightly just touch it up towards the edge there. But what I might do, just wet that brush, this nice clean, damp brush, and soften down the edge of this colour. Like that. Yeah, that'll do, something like that. The same colour for the edge of the wings, so around there. And just got one peeking through around here, haven't we? Can hardly tell. As for the branch, while we're working on this colour, do the same thing again, but this time what I'm going to do is wet the branch in places. Just haphazardly, leaving plenty of gaps in between. I don't want to get the paper too wet, because it then starts to warp, twist, cockle, whichever words you want to use for that. And use that just by tapping and stippling in places. To add a tiny amount of colour here and there to that branch, leaving plenty of gaps in between, of course. And you can change the colour if you wanted to, of course you can. Entirely up to you. I'm just using what's in my palette at the moment. Should we add a bit of yellow in there? Yeah, it's not on the photograph, but it doesn't matter. Just warms the branch up a touch, doesn't it? Just a touch here and there. Not too much. And a few little marks here and there. So a few marks towards the top, so it's lighter there. And that to me has warmed that branch up just nicely, hasn't it? Just a smidging of warmth. Hopefully the yellow should be nice and dry, which looks like it is. So we've got to think about the body of the bird. Now we've got 2 blues, and I'm going to use the lightest blue first of all. Make sure it's not too thick, so just more or less milky rather than watery. I'm going to wet the bird to begin with. and then apply the colours over the top. So wet it probably a couple of times. Be careful when you go around the eye. We don't want to get any colour in the eye. Even though there is a little bit of colour there on the photograph, but I think if I add colour into the eye now, it could darken the eye down too much. We've still got the beak to paint yet as well, don't forget. We'll do that shortly. Once we've got the colours on the feathers. Okay, colour-wise, I'm going to go for the lightest one first of all. If you remember, that was the indigo and the phthalo blue. We'll try that and see if it needs to be watered down a fraction. The water on the paper will dilute it anyway, which it will do. Apply it in the direction the feathers grow again. I want this to fade as it dries, and it will, because of the water content within it. Watercolours normally fade as they dry. If it's too rich, you'll find it just darken that painting, so I'm going to re-wet in places. Then carry on adding the colours over the top. Get a little bit more now. Here we go. Get the colour on the paper. All the way down to probably about there. Underneath the chin. Do this fairly swiftly because what we do need to do, well, it needs to be lighter there, look. It's actually lighter on this side, isn't it? So you can water that down just a fraction more on that one side. All you need to do, wet the brush, take most of the water off, just lift off some of that colour there, look. Just fades it slightly, doesn't it? Just around there. So apply it fairly swiftly as I mentioned because you want to get this paint on so you can start to work on that head colour as well. Because you can see the colour of the head is slightly different, isn't it? Only slightly though. Okay, damp clean brush. Move that around to soften it back a touch. Work your way around the eye. And then mainly for the head, use your darker colour now. Here we go. The indigo, the phthalo blue and the mauve. Add that in. Oh, look at that. That's strong. Take some of that off the brush now. That's very strong actually, isn't it? Then add this in. Mostly to the head. That just darkens it down a little bit more with that rich colour we've got on there. Look. A touch behind the eye. Just here and there. But like I said, it's more on the top of the head, isn't it? And especially this side of the head. That's where that colour is mostly, isn't it? Around there. Then lighter towards the edges. Now, the body again. Go back to this bluey colour. You know the ones now. Take some of that paint off, so give it a few light taps first of all. Then I'll touch more of this around the body to make some of those colours stand out that little bit more. Especially around where you got the folds of the feathers. Just by varying the tonal values within the chest, you can see instantly the difference that makes. Now beak. Wet the top part of the beak first of all. Just on its own, just dampen it down slightly. Go for your purple colour. Add that to the very top. Like that. And I think I'll just add a touch of blue in there as well. Just a hint of it. Sort of a purpley blue colour. Then changes to purple. The lower down that part of the beak it goes. Wet the bottom mandible, but avoid touching this one. Or dry that one first of all with a hairdryer. Just dampen it. Don't completely soak it through. Do the same again, go for your purple. But add this just on the outside edge to begin with. So it's not wet enough, that should be blending. So clean down brush, take most of that water off. Bit of water beyond it, then just bring that in towards that colour. I very often say what you need to do is step back from the painting for 5, 10, 15 minutes, anything like that. Go and put the kettle on, something like that. Then come back with those fresh eyes. And normally you'll find something which isn't quite right. In this case, even though I've signed it, it's not quite finished. And that's because I need another layer of colour over the top of the bird. You've probably already noticed that. But the thing is, when you're working so close to the painting, it's something very easy to miss. Because you're looking at the details more than the overall picture. Because you're constantly staring at it. So that's why I step away, then come back a little bit later on, and then decide. I can see now, as I mentioned, I've got to enrich some colours a little bit more yet. So remix my colours again because it did dry a little bit. What I now need to do is re-wet around the top of the head. We'll try and do this in sections instead, okay? So clean water, that's all you want there. Clean water. Let it soak into the paper a little bit. Just do the head for now. Grab some colour. I'm going to go for this one first of all, which is that indigo, phthalo blue and mauve. Add a touch more into the top of the head here, but not much. Just increase that colour around the area. That's enough. That's enough. Then go for this one, the indigo and the phthalo blue. And then join that on to there. I think that's probably too rich, but I don't care. Don't forget we'll dry that a little bit lighter. And then start to increase the colour depth that we can see within this head. Or the entire bird for that matter. Just remember it gets lighter the lower down you go. Once the head's dried, then I'll work on the beak. Not before. Otherwise the colours I put on the head will blend into that beak. There you go. Is that better? Yeah. That's more like it. Let's carry on down the rest of the body now, doing the same thing. But being very careful where we apply the colours. Or colour at the moment. Because I'm going to do something a little bit different further down. What's that then, Paul? Stay tuned and I'll show you. Now these birds very often breed in the eastern and southern United States. And apparently they migrate to Central America and also parts of the Caribbean for the winter. And did you know that these birds can sing up to 200 songs per hour during the breeding season? That's a lot of singing, isn't it? They must have very sore throats after all that singing. Another factoid for this lovely bird is that it can also migrate over 1,200 miles. Okay, now here's something a little bit different for you. I'm going to go for some yellow. Yellow? Why? When you look down here, I can just see a hint of yellow within the feathers. What do you mean, Paul? Only a hint. That means it's going to turn green, I know. But just a hint of it down there. Oh, I know, that's strong. So bear with me. Bear with me. Water yellow down. Like that. Grab some of your blue. The indigo and the phthalo blue. Then go over the top of that again. Just around those areas. So mixing the two colours together, or the two mixes together. Just around there. That blends it back a little bit more, but then we've got a slight change in colour there, haven't we? That's how you can achieve that. By just adding just a touch of Gambo hue down to the bottom area. Then just add a touch of colour to the top part of that beak now. It's nearly dry over the top of the head. Just a touch of that same colour again, that purpley colour. The mauve Payne's grey and the burnt umber. Just around there. And then the clean damp brush, not soaking wet. Very lightly soften it down on the underside of that line. Like that. Now if you do fancy having to go at another pen and wash technique, I'll pop a link to the top right hand corner of the screen just up there, look. Okay? I'll see you there.